Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Right to Read initiative. I'm just going to give it a few minutes while people are being let in to the symposium. So hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Kathryn Garforth from Garforth Education and the Right to Read initiative. Today, I am very privileged to have a great group of educators join me for a comprehensive approach to improving literacy. So I am so glad you have taken the time to join us today, and I look forward to hearing some of these great presentations from our various speakers today. So before we get started, I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you are posting about this symposium, please make sure to tag the Right to Read initiative on the various social media accounts. It helps gain knowledge and help other people learn some of the information that we're covering. Now, this symposium is being recorded, so if at any point you need to leave, we understand. It's just right before school's beginning, so I'm sure there are lots of things that you need to do. So you will be able to access the replays at the Right to Read Initiative website, which is www.righttoreadinitiative.com. You can catch them on the Right to Read Initiative YouTube channel, and they will be released as part of season 2 of the Right to Read Initiative podcast, which you can access on the various streaming networks. We have a live question and answer happening later on this afternoon, and I'm really excited for that because it means that you're going to be able to ask your questions to our panel of experts and hear what they have to say about your questions and giving you feedback. You will be able to type questions into the question and answer box during this presentation, and we will try to adjust them with the presentation live, but there's some that we're going to save for later on and keep track of those. If you have any questions and you are watching this as a replay, please forward your questions to info@therighttoreadinitiative.com or email one of the speakers from the presentation. So my name is Dr. Kathryn Garforth. As I said, I reside in British Columbia. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can access me at info@therighttoreadinitiative.com and on my social media. I also am the owner of Garforth Education. I come to this knowledge that I'm sharing through personal experience and professional training. I am very passionate about students' right to read as a dyslexic individual myself and having a difficult time. And then as a parent of a dyslexic student, I know the need to make sure that we have best practices in place for all of our students so they don't have to struggle as they go through school. I am a person who loves quotes. And this is one of my favorite by Dr. Jean Shaw. I want to highlight that this is from 1967. So this quote is more than 50 years old. She said, "The controversy over the teaching of reading that has raged for over a decade has resulted in enormous confusion for parents and teachers who are lost in a welter of words, opinions, and materials. What has been missing has been a dispassionate look at the facts and about how to begin, when to begin, what instructional materials to use, and how to organize classes for instruction." I love the information that's communicated in this quotation. It bothers me that this is still something that we're having to speak about and deal with in our classrooms, in our teacher education programs, in our in-service training. And today's conversation is about trying to get you the information that you need to have a little bit more clarity. Now, this information is stuff that has been accumulated over decades. I mean, Dr. Chall mentioned it in the 60s. In the year 2000, the United States issued the National Reading Panel report, and in that report, it came up with best practices. It was a huge meta-analysis looking at the research in best practices for teaching reading. From that report, there were 5 key components of literacy instruction that were identified. They were phonics, phonological awareness, vocabulary, fluency, and reading comprehension. Then in 2005, Australia's National Inquiry to the Teaching of Reading came up with similar reports saying that those 5 areas are key to effective instruction. In the UK, they released the Rose Report in 2006, finding similar findings. And August and Shanahan in the United States did another analysis looking at students who have English as an additional language and who are learning to speak and read English at the same time. Their findings were that phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and reading comprehension were those 5 keys and pillars for reading instruction that needed to be focused on. In February of this year, the Ontario Human Rights Commission issued a report that is entitled The Right to Read, a public inquiry into the human rights issues affecting students with reading disabilities. Now, this is an excellent report, and I'll give you a little bit more detail about it in a minute. If you have not read it, the QR code in the bottom of the screen will take you to the website so you can read it. It is an excellent report full of wonderful information, but I think my favorite part of it are the recommendations, because that clearly lays out what we need to do as educators and what the education system needs to do to make it so we have an equitable access to literacy instruction for all of our students. And the other thing is there is a long report and a short form of the report. The executive summary is a little bit easier to read and not as dense. There also are the recommendations. So this report came up with 157 recommendations. The first 26 represent recommendations to help make sure that we're making the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit experiences authentic and sensitive to the needs of these students. Then there are 32 recommendations talking about the curriculum and instructional needs of students for literacy in K to grade 8. The important thing to mention is that even though this report focused on looking at the needs of individuals with specific learning disorders, it has information that are applicable to all students, as we can see from the reports that I mentioned earlier. If you scan this QR code, you will be taken to the recommendations themselves. There are 19 recommendations focusing on the importance of early screening and providing guidance on how we can do that. Early screening measures are designed to alert educators of the needs of students and not diagnose a specific learning disorder. It is giving them practical information that they can use to help meet their students' needs. We are very fortunate today to be having some speakers that are going to be able to speak to this and the changes that it has made for their schools and classrooms. There are 17 recommendations speaking specifically to reading interventions, even though we do have an effective curriculum in place. And when there is early screening, there are still going to be students that do require additional intervention to meet their achievement needs for reading. This gives a very good guideline on how to do that. Students with additional learning needs may often require accommodations. There are 24 recommendations that are specifically speaking to the accommodations students can access to help support their learning. The important thing to note is accommodations are there as support and do not replace instruction. There are 30 recommendations regarding the professional assessment and diagnosis of specific learning disorders and how we can make it so it's more accessible across Canada and North America. We're seeing long waits for students to get psychoeducational assessments when they need to learn, or when students need to access the help. They shouldn't have to wait years to have the diagnosis to get their needs met. So these recommendations go into that in further detail. Finally, there are 27 recommendations about systemic issues and how we can address those issues. Today, I have the privilege of introducing you to 4 speakers. The first is Dr. George Giorgio, and he is going to talk to us about listening to the research. His research in Alberta schools has produced amazing results for young students, even during the COVID-19 pandemic. And he has also played an instrumental role in redesigning Alberta's curriculum. And he will be able to speak to us about that. So that is at 11 a.m. General Mountain Time. Then we have Pamela Gilbert, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, and she's talking about making changes at the district level. The important thing to note is we're not just talking about changes in the classroom, it's systemic change that needs to occur. So we need to have support at multiple levels. We're going to hear about how she was able to make changes within her district and what she has learned along the way to help other districts have a more efficient transition to meeting the needs of their students. She is an excellent resource, and I am looking forward to hearing her tips. We have Dr. Matthew Kierstead presenting at 1:30. So there will be a half an hour lunch break that we're going to give you a little bit of time to refresh. And he will speak about his role as a school principal and the changes that he's made to literacy instruction, and give other administrators advice on what they can do to help improve their outcomes. Now, I had the pleasure of speaking with Matthew a few times on the Right to Read Initiative podcast, and the work that he has done is truly amazing. And if I recall correctly, he spoke about how, he had these literacy goals for his school, but now they're at the point where it doesn't need to be a school-wide goal because they are reaching the expectations that we need. And he's able to specifically target teachers' areas needs for professional development instead of having blanketed professional development across the school. At 2:30, Heather Wilson, who is a learning support teacher, will talk to us about her advice for teachers who are looking to make change in literacy instruction. She will provide you with information on how you can take your instruction to the next level and help you understand that this is a process that we recognize that is stepping out of your comfort zone. At 3:30, we'll be having a live question and answer panel session where all of us will be available to answer your questions about the content that we've covered, and if you have anything specifically to discuss.